You just got to listen to every single detail of the expectations and try to accomplish it within that budget, timeline, and everything else that goes along with it. Not feeling heard. If you don't feel it in your gut, honestly, it sounds so silly, but if you don't feel in your gut that this person is listening to you and is going to give you what you want, red flag.
How are you able to make your rental property stand out amongst all of the other listings that are available to renters? Well, that is what we're going to talk about here with my interior designer, Linda. Linda, thank you so much for joining me today for the Lady Landlords podcast. How you doing?
I'm good. Thank you for having me.
I have had such a fantastic experience working with you over these past couple weeks that I am so excited to be able to share the things that I've learned, the tips that you've taught me with our Lady Landlords community. I think this is going to be incredibly helpful, not just for those that have long-term rentals, that do flips, but also our members that do rent furnish for short-term rentals and mid-term rentals. So we'll dive into that in a second. But why don't you just introduce who you, Linda, is behind the interior design?
Well, mom. Wife for a long time. I just realized it's going to be 30 years soon. Yeah. Crazy. So I do this kind of right now in my free time. I have another job, which I won't get into. But just really, I'm all about the community, my family, travel. Oh my goodness, I love travel. And that's why I do this, earning me a little bit of extra money. So that way every November, and for all the moms out there, when you get that school break in November for Thanksgiving, great time to go away. If you don't have the traditional family breaks and the big dinners, go away. It's fantastic time. So we try to do that every year.
Our group is known for loving travel. A lot of our members do. What is one place on your bucket list?
Oh, that's a good question. One, I can only pick one, probably Switzerland.
Switzerland.
Yes.
I don't think I've ever heard that as a bucket list choice. Very cool. But I love that you mentioned that. And I think it's really great that we still have to find kind of that balance between what we do and the things that we enjoy. And I love that what you do and something that you're so passionate about actually funds your ability to be able to travel.
Absolutely.
So that's what we're all about. I was also going to say, for all our listeners out there that have joined Lady Landlords in our Facebook community, Linda and I actually met in a Facebook community.
There you go.
So I was looking for someone that can help me with interior design. I posted in a local group, and that's actually how Linda and I connected. So I want to remind all of our listeners out there the power of those Facebook groups. Go ask for what you need and make sure to communicate and follow up with people. But Linda, where did interior design pop up for you, right? I know you do other things and have other work outside of that, but was design always a passion and something that you wanted to get into, or did that come up later in life?
No, it was always. So I think I kind of know where it stemmed from. And I may have told you this when we first met. I honestly think I came out of the womb as a designer. But to be honest, the first memory I have, my father was a mechanical engineer. And back before computers, he would have the grid paper and would sketch out essentially machinery. So while my mother was making dinner and he would sit on the sofa with his pencil and that pad, I would sit next to him and just be completely blown away by what he was sketching on this paper. And that led to me taking a mechanical drawing class in high school. I was the only girl. And then that led to me getting into, I wanted to be an architect, but, just schools didn't work out. And then I saw that interior design was a great backup. And thank God that happened. I think everything happens for a reason, because it was the best little, I guess, oops in my life that could have happened. And even though I went to school and yes, I have a degree, I truly believe you're born with certain qualities, just like you probably would see in your own line of work. Everybody has a certain knack for something. It's just obviously you can go to school to polish those skills or whatever it may be. But yeah, I was born this way.
Right. And I think that's something that when it comes to design, which really is art, like that's something kind of people tend to be born with rather than something that can be taught. I agree with what you're saying. You can go to school to learn the skill around it, learn business around it, those types of things. But I really kind of feel like it's something that you kind of got or you don't have.
I agree completely. So
I always find it funny because I feel like a lot of people that always work in art wear black and always have black glasses.
Really? Oh, too funny.
So for those of us that are watching us on YouTube, It's just something that I've always noticed about people that work in the art industry.
I'll have to keep my eye open for that. I didn't realize it. That's
Yep.
funny.
So you got into interior design. What were some of like the roles that you had in when you worked full time in interior design previously?
Okay, so this is another happy accident in my life, and I call them happy accidents because some people, when what's a good example I can give? I would say back in the late '90s, my first serious job in Manhattan, the real estate market wasn't doing very well. Early 2000s, and I wanted to be a high end residential designer, work for the biggest firms, and it just didn't work out that way. Nobody was hiring, so I ended up getting into commercial design, which was the best thing that could have happened because I got to work with architects. I got to go to building sites and wear hard hats and measure, and I got dirty. And it was a completely different environment that I thought I would get into, but I loved it. I ended up learning so many other things that I never would have learned if I was walking around in a Chanel suit with high heels and, So I'm so glad it didn't happen that way. I honestly
Right.
don't think I would have been true to myself if it had. So again, another happy accident. But once I got into that, it led into facilities design. And one of my best jobs was working for Ethan Allen Corporate in Danbury for a very long time. But they also had me doing their facilities, so everything in their building, as well as designing stores. So it's just amazing how life can throw you a bone and maybe even a negative bone, but then you turn it into a positive one. So you gotta roll with the punches.
Those were the exact words that I was thinking when you were describing that.
Yeah.
So I love that you said that. So I heard about interior designing clearly like years ago. My perception personally was always, well, that's something for really, really rich people.
Mm-hmm.
That's something that's just going to be most regular people, here in air quotes. That's something that they can't afford. That's something they can't do.
Right.
We started buying our rental properties back in 2018. We now have 17 rentals. The first 16 that we had, even with flips that we've done, even with the short-term rentals that we've done, those were all things that I was like, well, I guess I have to figure those things out on my own.
Okay.
For this 17th one, I was like, I do not want to do this on my own. It was a bit different because it was a property that after we did the renovations to it, I was going to be living in. And design is not my strength. It is not like a space that I really do well in. Because of that, that's why I said, let me actually seek out how this really works. So if you can, why don't you kind of throw out that like myth, this, preconceived notion that I had of like, oh, it's only for like the uber wealthy people that can really hire interior designers. To me, I was like, I have no idea how this costs, how this works, who actually buys the furniture. Am I going to end up with a style that is so not what I'm looking for? So throw out those myths of all the things that I thought working with an interior designer actually meant versus how it actually works in practicality.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, you can hire that uber expensive interior designer for sure. Since I've always been one, I've never had to work with one, so I don't know actually what it's like. I've had one boss that kind of fit that scenario. I always like to approach things with just like sales and anything in life. You listen to the person you're talking to. At what they're telling you is your path. What your style? You told me the colors that you wanted, the vibe that you liked. I mean, even though you didn't think that you could come up with it on your own, just listening to what you were saying, I could kind of envision what you wanted, essentially. And then obviously, as we started working with each other, and I knew you loved the gold accents, especially in the kitchen, and you wanted this color, the turquoise or the aqua in certain areas, and knowing that those work well together, and you talk about the beach and your other property all the time. So it's like putting a puzzle together. You take all those little pieces of things that you love, and again, I'm just born with it. I can envision it in my head already before I've presented it to you or before I've given you any ideas. It's kind of weird how I could see it before we even shopped for things, if that makes any sense. It just clicks.
It does for me because I work with what I do within helping women put together real estate investing strategy. I have women that'll usually come to me and they're like, well, this is like the goal that I want to accomplish. This is kind of what finances look like. And I always say to them, I'm like, I feel like a Rubik's Cube. You give me all the information and I can kind of put the pieces together and it just kind of spits out in a way. Right. And I almost feel like that's what I'm hearing you say. Give me the ideas, give me the things that you like. let me kind of get to know like your vibe. And then just for you, like that picture just kind of comes together.
Exactly. And it's interesting. The one thing that I'm just thought of now that I could tell was I don't want to say it was a stopping point, but the one bit of hesitation that your husband had, which I hope he doesn't mind that I'm bringing this up, but like the shears behind the draperies, you get so much sunlight in your home from different rooms, obviously, as the sun travels throughout the day. And with your business and me knowing reflections off of TV, reflections off of your screen, those are things you just have to keep in mind. And, him wondering why we needed so many shears behind them was just, bless his heart. But I love that you guys could see now the reasoning why we did that.
Right. His hesitation was because he had to hang them.
Oh, there you go.
That was why. If he was sitting there on the couch like I got to and just be like, hey, put this up on the wall, then I don't think he would have had as much of a questioning issue with it. But that's also something that for him, that was also something new.
Oh, true. Okay.
My husband worked nights for many years. So his plan was always just blackouts, always closed at all times. So even the concept of something that is sheer needed to be explained to him, let alone then the purpose to it. So that's where I really feel like that learning curve came in. So what I think was cool was that there were kind of two pieces that we got to do. And I remember the first time we spoke, I kind of, as I was trying to explain what I needed the first time we met, I kind of said, hey, this is kind of almost in like three phases, I think was kind of the way that I broke it down. So I want to start with just phase one for our members here, because that really was about the renovation piece. Mm-hmm. So originally, once again, my misconception about interior designers was saying, well, I need somebody to come in to figure out what color carpets I need and curtains I need and furniture. What things should I buy? And then I was like, oh my God, I actually have to start with what color walls I'm painting things, what faucets, what types of cabinet handles. And like I said, I have done all of those things for my rentals previously. And to be honest, I don't know why I didn't get assistance with that to start with, because I can just see a difference, not just in the style, in now the perceived value in my property that I can get from a rent perspective, but also the functionality is completely different. Would you say most interior designers work with that, like, hey, we need furnishings, or hey, let's come in at the very beginning and still actually have to pick out all of those different just baseline foundations, colors, doorknobs, those types of things? Right.
Well, and it goes back to listening to you and to whoever, obviously needs the assistance. And the preconceived notion that hiring a designer is very, very expensive. Maybe that's the reason why you didn't want to do it for the other properties, because you kind of thought, obviously this is a business and I want to make money. I don't want to spend money to have somebody tell me what paint color to choose. It all kind of plays hand in hand. However, it's something that can give you so much more money in your pocket by doing it the right way. Not necessarily saying I'm the best one to hire, but, getting the right colors and everything, and on the accessories and furniture and, the vibe down can make a huge impact. I mean, we all know first impression is everything. If you have a customer come into a building and they have this horrific, brown color on the walls, some people are so visual, they can't get past it. They can't see that if that wall was a creamy white, it would brighten up the room. Some people can't see that. So that brown wall has completely ruined the sale right then and there. You could walk them through the whole space. They're still not going to buy from you. I've kind of gone completely off kilter here, but it all boils down to listening to what the needs are and figuring out what the budget is. And if that first point of it is not going to fall within the budget, maybe then the designer can just guide you a little bit and then get into, when the fees come into play. But it really just depends on what everybody needs.
I like that there are those different options. I remember the first rehab that I did back in 2019. And we were very fortunate to use a construction company that we knew the people personally. But once again, this was a much larger project than we'd ever done before. Before it was just more fixing or upgrading things that were already existing. Okay. But we had to tear this place down in this new building because it was just ridiculous.
Oh boy. Okay.
So I remember we were very fortunate to go with those contractors to Home Depot to go pick out the materials, and they were going to then do the transportation.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember just like the contractor just kind of looking at me being like, so which handles do you want? And I was just like, oh shit, like I didn't realize that I actually had to be the one to like kind of figure that out. And even like
Right.
my own husband, my business partner in owning the property, like even he kind of turned to me, and I was like, whoa, I thought you were on my team, not like their team. And it was, what was interesting is that entire time at Home Depot, it was walking around saying, well, which of these faucets do you want? Well, which of these cabinet knobs do you want? Well, which of these hinges? I didn't
Right.
know how many different types of hinges that there were and how many different types of colors.
And what an impact a hinge can make.
Correct. And even if you are saying, well, this does not apply to me because I have a lower cost of living area, my rental is not a very expensive rental, or it's a smaller renter, it actually does. And here's why. And Linda, you really hit the nail on the head with this. When a tenant comes in to see a place or a buyer for a property, they're imagining themselves living in it. So we talk about this in Lady Landlords often. A lot of us, we want to make sure to get a place rented before the tenants move out. But if those current tenants are having you do showings in a messy apartment, mm-hmm. and it just has really bad furniture and they had maybe a bad setup or they were dirty, the new tenants coming in are automatically going to be turned off from what that looks like. Also, another experience that I've had is sometimes I used to do a showing right before, like when things were kind of set up, and there was still a little bit of construction. Maybe they still had the paper down on the floor, yes. Or maybe like a room still needed to be painted, or maybe the tenant had just vacated, but like it just needed to be, refreshed, not bad condition, but just kind of zhuzhed up. Right. I had a lot less applicants during that time because most people are looking for their home. They're not investors like we are. They can't see that vision. They can't see what things are going to look like after. They're sitting there being like, well, there's no way I'm going to let my kid into this place based on what this looks like, or it looks like a construction site still. So exactly. Those details are really important. So what I loved was actually working now with an interior designer. I had that ability to say, hey, I need you just to come in. Just give me a color scheme. I mean, cool, I could have done that. Or like, hey, Linda, can you come hold my hand at Home Depot? And I could have also said, well, that fits within my budget. Maybe I'm doing more of a luxury rental. That would have been support that I would have needed. Mm-hmm. So I like that there actually were options between that, but it's sounding like to really get that top dollar, regardless of if it's a flip that I'm selling or then something I'm rented out, it seems like it's incredibly important to make sure that I have these right details, those right colors, these right just kind of assets and design to it to really attract kind of top dollar for my property.
Absolutely. And you know what? It could be something as simple as hypothetically, say the owner purchaser knows they're going to repaint. I mean, usually that's probably something that everybody does once they purchase a property and then, before they get a tenant. But something as simple as paint and the faucet, and maybe even if it's just a new countertop, leave the base. It can be all very, very inexpensive things that make such a huge visual impact that I think it's worth it in the long run.
Right. And that was one of the places that we started, was really just getting kind of color scheme down, right? I felt like it was color scheme and what like the basics were going to look like for the property. And then starting to say what was going to be a little bit, for me, I felt I'm going to call it kind of a theme of each room. Right. Or like, it was really nice when we kind of decided like, okay, things that were black matte square was like my space, because then I sat there and then I felt like that was something that I can then go do, was be like, okay, I have to get hinges. I have to get doorknobs. I have to get cabinet poles. I have to do these things. Okay. Everything I'm looking for is black matte square. And then I could at least stay in that category.
Right.
That was an incredibly helpful space to get. So I'm recommending to our listeners to even just have that conversation and be able to put together that mood board. If you are out there saying, but Becky, I love Pinterest and I want to be on it every day, great. Go do that. Me, not my space. I could go down that rabbit hole forever. Another new trend that a lot of people are doing, and Linda, you and I have talked about this too, is people using AI to help with that design, right? And I totally get it. There's a bunch of our listeners out there that are probably saying, yep, that's free, that's really cheap, I can just kind of go on there. Have you seen like an uptick of people using AI? And do you feel that that is making an impact or hurting the interior design business?
Initially, I thought it was hurting, but I don't know if you remember when we first started designing the office that you're sitting in. I don't know if
Yeah.
you remember, I actually did send you 2 AI images, and I complained about it because it kept altering the paint color. It was
Right.
making it look more like bubble gum. And
Right.
I mean, it may sound silly, but paint color is everything. And you need to see it in the space that you are currently going to use it in the sunlight, with whether it's natural light or your lamps, whatever. It makes a huge difference. And I
Hmm.
ended up, I think I told you, don't use these, this is just to show you what the rug will look like and your desk.
Right.
And don't really focus on the paint color because it's going to look completely different. AI could help with certain things, but it could really, really be harmful too. So I'm just going to kind of put out there a warning of just be careful. It may not
Right.
actually look like, what you're seeing in the image when you actually do it.
Right. So there's actually kind of two pieces, in my opinion, to that. One, just like the Pinterest board.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to play around with AI and look at rooms and look and reorganize those things. I don't want to go down that rabbit hole from a time perspective. Most of our lady landlords do have families, they have friends, they have other hobbies in their life, and they usually do
Mm-hmm.
also work full time. That's something that maybe design, just like me, maybe design is not necessarily your thing. So a great reason to go find a resource like an interior designer to be able to do those things. But on the second side, this was also a problem we had with the renovation that I was doing. Linda, you might remember we had picked out them colors. We had so, but actually, I'm going to come back to how I kind of went through that process in a minute. But we went and picked out the color, and then the contractor said, "Oh, I'm going to use a different type of paint, but don't worry, I'll find a blue." And I remember, I lost my mind, being like, "What do you mean you're going to find me a blue? Like, there's how many different varieties of blue?" That once again, we were already matching up with what the floor was going to look like, with what cabinets were going to look like, with what handles were going to look like. And I received a picture of that. Well, a picture on a phone did not help me figure out what that color actually looked like. So that's why AI can possibly not be helpful in that situation, because it's not really going to show you that overall picture. The process my husband and I went through for paint colors on the newest renovation was gave Linda an idea of kind of what colors I wanted to be with. One of the best things ever was that Linda actually came to me and brought me paint samples on cards. She didn't say, "Well, go to Home Depot and just look through the thousands that they have." She narrowed down my selection. That saved my brain so much energy, so much time, so much stress, because I at least had a direction of where I was looking. I then was able to really pick out 2 or 3 different options of what I liked from that point. Then I did buy samples of paint, and then I came back and I painted those on walls, and then I checked them during multiple time points throughout the day just to see what the light would look like. What's really interesting is most of the renovations were done in 2 colors. At some points of the day, the 2 colors actually look like the reverse of each other, or they look like the exact same color, depending on the time of day. And it worked out so cool that they complement each other so well because of that. But you
Right.
literally would look at it, and if it's a different time of day, you'd be like, "Oh my God, the painters painted the walls the complete wrong color." And then you're like, "No, it's just the sun. It's just because now we put up the sheer curtains." Now all of these different things kind of change that. And that's just in person, let alone, and this was something that my husband was actually floored by. He was just like, "What do you mean we have to stay at this property until it gets dark so you can look at paint colors again?" And then I was like, "Well, not only do I have to look at it in the evening, but then I actually have to turn on the artificial lights and then see what that looks like too." And he's like, "Just pick a paint color." He was kind of like, "But you want gray. Like, gray is gray is gray." And then it was just so interesting to see his mind kind of open and be like, "I don't like that gray." And I'm like, "Oh, really?" And he's like, "Well, I liked it during the day, but I don't like it when the lights are on." And it was just
Isn't,
like
yeah.
completely different. So getting those foundations down. So for all of my listeners that have those long-term rentals, if you are doing those flips or are saying, "Hey, I bought a property, tenants moving out, I've had it for a long time," really being able to say, "Let me get some support and have someone come in and just give me those foundations," can be a great idea.
Mm-hmm.
The other thing, Linda, we did was on this most recent property, I did not do a gut rehab on everything. We just kind of touched up what bathrooms look like and what kitchen looked like. right? Because there was just so much other work and so many other larger items we had to do. So talk to me about if someone came and said, hey, listen, the rest of the house is in pretty good shape, but just this one room, this bathroom just needs to be fixed, but I don't want to gut the whole thing. One, do interior designers work to support just like a change in a one room? And is that something that also, does it always have to be a gut renovation, or are there ways to just make improvements with kind of what's already existing?
So I'm going to use actually a story from my own home. It was actually my second home, and I'm going to use your kitchen as an example. So to blanket answer is no, you don't have to completely gut things. So what happened in our second home, we purchased in, it doesn't matter when, 16 years ago. And the tile was 1970 yellow pea green soup color, if you could remember. I'm aging myself, but there is a company that can sandblast the tile and tub, everything, and pretty much anything you have in your bathroom, except for the vanity and the toilet. They essentially can sandblast the paint off and repaint it and reglaze it. So I made everything white. Best, I think at the time it was $2,000-$3,000 versus completely gutting down to the studs. Exactly. It wasn't in our budget, but I couldn't live with 1982 pea green soup on my walls every morning either. And it also, I mean, I'm not, as you can see, I don't wear lots of makeup, but having green while you're trying to apply makeup is just not a good color.
And not pea green.
Exactly. Right. So, and the other thing, when it comes to like your kitchen, 5-10 years from now, yes, you may do a little bit of gutting and possibly, taking down the cabinets completely. But if you have good bones with anything, the way I like to approach design, and I mentioned this to you when I first met you, I love saving people money. I love getting the biggest bang out of every dollar that we can do. So, painting your cabinets, because the guts of them, the bones of them were so strong and well made, they were perfectly fine. And for any of the people out there that are going to be getting new spaces or in their existing rentals, it is as long as the bones of the structures are still strong and can handle another 5 years of somebody living there, you don't have to do a gut. Obviously, case by case basis. But for the most part, you can work around what you already have and save a lot of money in the long run.
Right. I loved what we actually did with the bathrooms. So bathrooms, for everybody out there, they were just outdated. They really hadn't been taken care of very much. They were the house was built in like the early 2000s, but to me, it had a very 1990s kind of vibe to it.
It did.
It was very weird. I keep saying that, but it really was not as old as that. But you said, we'll just change out. Let's get, once again, your black square mat cabinet holes for the bathrooms. Let's throw some rugs down. Let's change the light fixtures. It looks like a completely different bathroom, a completely different space.
Right.
So just really kind of like the styling to it just made such a big difference. And that cost me a few $100 maybe,
right,
compared to 10, 15,000 per bathroom to really kind of have to be able to gut that space. And that's something that right now, it didn't work with budget of what I was working with. It didn't work with the timeline of what I was working with. It didn't work with my bandwidth here before having a baby to redo everything. It was a great purchase, but all because we're purchasing something doesn't mean that we always have to gut rehab absolutely everything. And if you're thinking about that from a rental perspective, we really have to be thinking about that ROI of what are we spending versus what are we going to get back from it. So it was so great just to have you be able to say, hey, here's a couple ways that we can just kind of like adapt this space, update this space a little bit, and still have that within an affordable place, which would work fantastic for so many people with rentals. I do want to switch to short-term rentals, mid-term rentals in a second here. But before I do, one conversation that we have all the time in Lady Landlords is about agreeable gray, a very popular paint color that's out there. It's been out there. It's been the most popular color for years. Is agreeable gray staying or is it on its way out?
It's always a safe color, just like, I don't know what this one's called, but it's always going to be safe, just like your traditional white. It depends on what you put with it.
Well said. Well said. I would also say, as somebody that lived in New York City for so many years, rentals are always painted eggshell.
Yes.
Eggshell. And that was always something that when I moved in with my husband, when we then bought our first house, the first thing I did was get rid of eggshell. It always made me feel like I was in like a prison or a school cafeteria. But for me, eggshell was just what every rental in Manhattan is always painted. And I get why, but it was something I needed to change. But agreeable gray, I think it goes great with things. And if it's still a color you like, but I think that's why it's also important to kind of think about like the longevity of things within rentals. But let's switch a little bit to now this furnished rental space. Midterm rentals, meaning people that are renting things for a few months at a time, but not doing a full year lease. Short-term rentals, these Airbnbs, Verbos, those types of things have become so popular. But what was great was that they became really popular and were great options for people. But now what's changed is now there's a lot of competition for those spaces. Can interior design help those short-term rental, midterm rental operators stand out from a marketing perspective to be able to draw in more clients when there's so many other properties that are having the same basic amenities?
I would say yes, only because a couple of things. If they're already on the market and being rented, hopefully they're getting feedback from the clients that are renting these spaces, whether, it be, oh, I wish you had more lounge seating outdoors. I wish you had this, absorb all of that. They are your customers. They know best.
Right.
So it could be anything. I mean, obviously, I would think in those rentals, photography is everything, as well as testimonials. But putting things out there that are just going to grab somebody's eye, whether it be an accent wall that's got this really cool wood treatment that's stained or whatever the case may be. It could be an accessory for the kids to play with, a jungle gym, whatever, whatever vibe you're trying to create, especially geographically where you are. I mean, if you're at the beach, obviously it's going to be different than if you're in the Poconos and you have a zip line in the back. You know what I mean? There's going to be different things, but honing in on details like that is going to be huge. I mean, if you have a really small house and you're trying to get a big family in there, maybe there's a little nook totally geared towards games. Have a Scrabble board on the wall, like show what each space could be. Essentially make the pictures that you're putting out there look fun. So somebody's like, oh my God, that's so cool. I want to go there. It's all little tricks like that.
I think that's interesting because now we're back to how do we make sure to present things very well within pictures?
Right.
Right. If somebody really just kind of saw like, hey, here's 4 gray walls and okay, there's a bed and it has white linens on it. Well, that's probably not going to stand out so much. I love your idea. And you kind of mentioned a few things in there. 1, really optimizing space. 2, having a theme or kind of like a specific niche for that property, and also working with kind of what you got.
Absolutely.
I think those are really, really good points to be able to point out. And I feel like that then needs to be captured because it does come to photography. And you said it exactly perfect. What are the 2 things that people do when they go to look and book something? First thing you always do is you look through the pictures.
Right.
Then 2, you go read reviews. Maybe you go read the description. Maybe you go read the terms and conditions. Maybe you do those things. But otherwise, it really comes down to having to grasp what those things look like and how those things can then be photographed. Do you feel that most interior designers are equipped to be able to look at a property and understand, hey, this is a long-term rental, or hey, this is a short-term rental and really has to grasp attention very quick in pictures?
Absolutely. And again, I keep mentioning it, but it goes back to the needs of who you're talking to. So whether it's long-term or short-term, there's a goal. Everybody has to agree on a goal. And to accomplish that is the main goal. So it really just depends on the outcome that you want. You just got to listen to every single detail of the expectations and try to accomplish it within that budget, timeline, and everything else that goes along with it.
As a client, what are things that I can do to make your life as a designer easier?
Be honest.
Okay.
No, seriously. Especially, this is just where I come from. Your time is as valuable as mine. And the last thing I want to do is waste it. So if people always tend, and you guys may experience this too in your industry. So many people are afraid of talking about their budget. It's like, oh, I don't want to tell them I have 35 grand. Hopefully they'll think I only have 25. Just talk about it, because you don't want to assume the wrong number and then get a bad, you're not going to get what you want. So I
Right.
always approach things. I mean, I'm comfortable enough with myself to come out and say, what is your budget? Because I don't want to spend a penny more of it. And if anything, I'd really like to save you money. And I think I did that with you too.
Yeah. A couple times you were like, well, this thing's fantastic, but not for that price. Let me see what else I can find you. And then you spend your time finding me something that worked at a cheaper budget, right?
Exactly.
That still fit that vision, that purpose. But there were things that you were just like, no,
Right.
we are not buying that, Becky. And I was kind of
Exactly.
like, maybe I would have, but.
And you know what? Good point for the
Me.
rentals. Great point for the rentals. Spend the money on the things that are going to be used constantly. Your main sofa, the chair that is angled towards the TV, mattress, the little like end tables, things that people aren't going to actually be sitting on.
Right.
You don't need to spend money there. I mean, yeah, if you want to, go ahead and get, dovetail joinery and solid hard wood. Sure, go ahead and do it, but it's not necessary. It's the staple pieces that people are going to be utilizing all the time. That's where you should spend just a little bit more to make sure that it lasts.
Right. And for also consideration here, think about what also is in your market. I hear women often when they buy a property, they're like, oh, well, I could never live with this, or I need to make sure to make these changes. Well, if it's a rental property, you need to think about what is commonplace within that market. You're not the one that's going to be living there. So
Right.
We want to make sure that also things that we're upgrading fit quality, fit something that's going to be able to have the longevity, the wear and tear of tenants being able to be there for that period
Right.
of time, but also what's going to bring you, once again, your ROI. What is going to be able to boost the availability to get that maximum rent or that maximum stay or the best reviews for something, rather than saying, well, hey, I have this very eclectic taste and I want this very specific thing, even though it's in a property that you'll never really be staying in. So those are some things that would be easier to have with we come in, really saying, this is our budget, this is our timeline, this is kind of what we're looking for from that. What can we as investors, what should we watch out for when interviewing interior designers to see if somebody is a good fit for us to work with or not? What are kind of some, like, hey, these are some red flags that this might not be a person you want to work with? Or what are some other things that we should be like, yeah, this is actually sounding pretty good, this could be a good fit for me?
Number one, right off the bat, if somebody is talking over you and cutting you off and not listening to what you're saying, they already know that they're going to be just taking your money and designing the way that they want the space to look.
Right.
And if it's for a rental, a beach rental, say, and you're never going to live there, maybe that's not so bad. Maybe they have a vision and can give you the best expectation and end result. But if it's for your own space or something that's going to be not necessarily you may live in, but the person who's going to be in that space may have different styles and different types of backgrounds, and may not like her, or I shouldn't say her, their particular style. The red flags is definitely not feeling heard. If you don't feel it in your gut, honestly, it sounds so silly, but if you don't feel in your gut that this person is listening to you and is going to give you what you want, red flag. Don't even bother. And if upon first, I don't know if you felt this with me, but upon first meeting, if at the end of it, you don't feel like you've accomplished anything, number one, two, you don't have a goal for the next meeting. And three, even if you haven't even set the next meeting, you really got to go with your gut instinct, honestly. If it's not there, move on.
Right. That was actually, I felt with you. I'm a very action-oriented person. I like to feel very accomplished. I like to actually move the needle forward. I got a lot of things on my plate. Yeah. I am a very big idea person, so I can't stay stuck in things. I like to make decisions and move on to it, right?
Right.
And most of the time in life, you can change decisions down the line, right?
Mm-hmm.
You can always paint a room another color in the future. But for me, it was just really nice to say, okay, I know next steps. I felt very heard on my call with you. I felt like when I kind of laid out, like, hey, I feel like this is going to have to be done in kind of a couple phases, meaning I'm not going to have, and I think actually we ended up that way in the end, but at the beginning, I was like, this might not be consistent work all the way through. It might be, hey, let's do this for a few weeks. We'll take some time off. Then this for a few weeks, then we'll take some time off. And then we'll come back for kind of that third phase. So I felt like I wanted to just be very clear that also like it wasn't like a 40-hour a week like project for like a month and then like, okay, thank you, now we're done, go, move on to another client. But that there was going to have to be some back and forth, that there was going to be some like pieces with that. And I felt you were very responsive to that and explained also that that was something that you could work with, which really was helpful. And I love that also you did set up that plan of what we can do. And then our next meeting was actually meeting and just kind of looking at some basics. And that was really great because, and you came so prepared. My husband and I, when we left, we were both like, she had stuff like in her bag with like materials that we could see and touch and feel. And even if that just gave us a reassurance that it wasn't just this like big unimaginable goal, but now all of a sudden just really broken down into steps, organization, and then really just kind of saying, okay, let's get big picture figured out. Then we can get a little bit more clear on it, a little bit more clear on it, a little bit more clear on it as we went through those steps. We could have come in with the goal and said, Linda, contractor, I'll see you in a month. I don't, hey, it's a beach condo. You do you, whatever it looks like. If that's my goal, I'm sure that's perfectly fine. There are people that can stay completely out of that picture and just say, hey, you're the expert. You design what this looks like. I have a short-term rental down in Disney. Make it look like something that's going to stand out from the competition. I'll be back in a month. You show me what it looks like, right? If it's a rental, it's not something we have to necessarily be involved in. But what I think is really cool, and once again, breaking my own misconceptions, is that I could kind of have played that role in whatever way that I wanted. I think I could have also said to you, like, hey, here's my credit card. Go buy the curtains. Go buy this. Here's my budget. Like I said, have the house done by this date and we would have been fine, right? So what I really liked about working with you was that I had that flexibility to say, well, these are the things that I need. Can you do these? Can you not? And that's kind of how like we were able to work through that, which was really great.
And that's, to have an open mind and open communication. It's super important in anything, unfortunately, in life. It applies with everything. But expectations, it's the customer is number one. The customer is always right. You have to, I keep saying it and I sound terrible for repeating it, but you got to listen to what your customer wants.
Right.
It boils down to that. They are, my goal is to give you exactly everything that you want. If I can do it under budget, yay me, and yay you. I'd love when I can do that. But if you're somebody that thinks, okay, I just need to use her for 5 hours and I'll be done, or I need her for 5 months. Whether it be me, whether it be another designer, they have to be open to that. And again, it goes back to, if you're not feeling that, then move on.
Right. And I will say what I thought was interesting is for me, and I'll kind of wrap up with this, but for me, the biggest benefit that I got out of this, it actually wasn't coming within budget. It wasn't getting project done. It was actually how easy you made it for me. Okay. It was, I think I messaged you about that too. It was literally just having organization to it. It was the idea of having, my brain was not always filled with, I need to figure out this color. Do I do this style? Do I do this style? But really just having things like limited, I felt like it just took so much stress off me to just have like that clear plan, to be able to have like a list of just kind of options and pick from 5, rather than, like I said, going to Home Depot and looking at 1,000 different colors and having to pick from there. And that to me, regardless of the money, I felt like the saving of brain power really saved me more than anything else.
That's awesome. And the fact of, and again, you communicated that to me. You actually said at one point, if you could just provide me options. And then after that, once we realized that providing actual links to the item in the color that it's supposed to come in was also huge. And it's such a small little like tweak, but it saved you time, stress. You got a better night's sleep each time we did it. Hopefully. Yeah. It's just, and again, it boils down to making you as comfortable during the process as possible.
Right. I believe very much in letting experts be experts in what experts do. Right?
Yes, that's
I'm an
perfect.
Expert real estate investor. That is my space. I can rent things out. I know how to make money from those rentals. I can see the potential in buildings. That vision I have. What I don't have. And there were times that you sent me options of carpets and curtains, and I am like, how the hell is that going to work out? But I had for this room, pick options 1, 2, or 3 for the carpet. And then for the same room, pick carpet, curtain options 1, 2, or 3. And I was like, great. If Linda says these match, she's the expert. She knows how this is going to look. And I have loved every single room, the way that it's come out. And that has been just so fantastic to do that. But that's where I really had to trust you there. But to me, you gave me the bandwidth to do the things that I had to and be the expert in the space that I am for others. And then you took that burden off for me. So I recommend for all of our other listeners out there, if you are working on a project, if you were doing a flip, if you have a short-term rental or mid-term rental that's just not getting clientele right now, that's just not getting hits, not getting bookings, consider an interior designer. Have a couple conversations, interview some people. I'm going to link Linda's information down. She does work with people remotely as well. I'll link her info down in the show notes. Feel free to reach out to her. But have a couple conversations with some people and see if that's something that can really make a change in your business. So, Linda, thank you so much for being here today. I appreciate your help, your insight, not just for me personally, but also just coming on the podcast today. So thank you.
You're so welcome. My pleasure.
Yeah. For our listeners out there, please do make sure to hit that subscribe button so you do not miss the next episode of the Lady Landlords podcast. We release new episodes every single Tuesday. And also, if you enjoyed today's episode, and I know you did, please make sure to leave us a 5-star review. What that does is that actually pays it forward and helps another woman be able to find our podcast and get the support that they need while growing their rental portfolio. Thanks so much, and I will see you back in the Lady Landlords Facebook group.
Thank you for listening to the Lady Landlords podcast. If you're feeling stuck in your real estate investing journey, visit lady-landlords.com to book a 15-minute orientation call with me and see if you're ready to join our mentorship program. Or you can subscribe to our newsletter and join our Facebook group for exclusive real estate investing tips and offers. Invest with confidence. Become a Lady Landlord today.